In this video, we need to talk about a fundamental characteristics of elements, which is that each element is either a block level or an inline element. So, most elements on a page are so-called block level elements. But what actually is a block level element? Well, basically a block level element is an element that occupies 100% of the width that is available from the parent. So that sounds a bit strange. So let me show that to you easily by adding a background color to this H1, which is in fact a block level element. So if we just, for testing here, add a background color of red, you see that it occupies 100% of the space that is available to it. So that's all the way from the right side here to the left side, which accepts, of course, the padding. So the padding is not available, but then 100% of the available space is occupied by this element. On the other hand, we have so-called inline elements, which are all the elements that only occupy the space that they actually need for the content. And we can immediately see here some examples of that. So for example, this input field here, this button, and in fact all of these buttons, they're really small. So they basically only occupy this space that they need for the content and nothing else. So the same is true for this here. So this tag, I wanted to quickly show that to you. So that's a span element. And remember that the span was simply basically for some small generic text. And so this is also an inline element. And the same again for the button and also for this strong element. So let's take the example of this span, so with the class of tag. And so I will add the red background color here as well. And so now you will see the fundamental difference. So again, this one only occupies the space that it needs, while this one occupies all the space that it can, basically. And this has different implications, for example, for the box model. So let's see what happens when we add a margin here to this tag. So just margin, and let's say 30 pixels, so we can actually see it. Well, maybe even some more, so 50 pixels. So you see that the margin has actually been added here to this left side, right? But not really to the top. So no space was created to the top and to the bottom of the inline element. So we can see that here. Where is it? Right here. So we have the span element, and we clearly see here by the orange bars that the margin has only been added to the left and the right. And the same is true for padding, actually. So if we add a padding of 50 pixels, you see that the color was actually added, but then it didn't create any space again. So now you see it all around the element, but that is only visually. So it didn't create any new space on the page. That's why it's now overlapping with this text. While if you did the same on the H1, then we would see that everything else simply moves up and down. Okay, and so this is something important that you need to keep in mind whenever you work with the box model. Now, something that is very interesting is that we can actually change the type of the element by using the display property. So we can actually transform this inline element to a block level element by setting display to block. And so what happens now? So just like the H1, now this element did create a lot of space for the padding. So it's no longer overlapping its sibling elements. And also it now occupies 100% of the available width. So sometimes this can be a helpful trick, but not really in this case, actually. Now, one other important application that this has is the way that the text align property works. So before we used already text align here, and so let me show it to you again. So text align center, and so now basically the content will be centered inside of this box. So basically the text content. If we added any other child elements, these would not be centered because they are not really text. Okay, so the text is centered inside of this box. But if we did the same here on the tag, which is an inline element, then nothing really would happen. So if we give it a save, then nothing will happen. And as you see, it looks exactly as before. And if you think about this, then it actually makes sense. So up here, this box occupies all the space that it has. And so therefore the text can easily be centered in it. But here, this element only occupies the space that it already needs for its content. So no more space than that. And so it means there's no empty space in which any centering could happen. Okay. So let's remove that and let's remove it here. And now just one final thing that you might find curious is that CSS basically treats these inline elements as though they were text. So here we have all of these elements as inline. So we can see that. So we have input, that's inline, we have span, that's an inline, and also the select and button. And so if they are treated as text, then in the form, which is here, we can set text align center and watch what happens. So everything is nicely centered. So that's a nice trick to also keep in mind with inline elements. Okay. So let's remove this. We no longer need these colors. Here I will actually keep the text align for now. It looks a bit nicer than this. And here let's also get rid of the padding and also the background color. Even though, since we are working on this tag, let's actually format it a little bit also. So let's go back here to our original. So you see that each of these tags, so each of these categories has a different background color. And so let's do that now here as well. So we have technology and society. So each of them will have a different background color. And we could achieve that in different ways. So we could create a class called technology with one background color and then another class called society with the other background color. So that would be one option, or we could also add it as a so-called inline style. So remember how in the beginning of the section I said that we could write CSS in 3 different places. So inside the head, inside an external file, or also right inside of the element. And so that's what we will do now. So let's come here and let's add the style attribute. So now we're back to HTML. Okay, and now we simply write the CSS property here and the value. So basically we can write a CSS declaration right here. So background color, let's start with red again. And yeah, so now only this one is red and this one we didn't give any style yet. So now we have that data, remember, right here. So we can copy the color and then just use it here in the HTML. Don't forget the hash and then the values. Okay, beautiful. And now the same thing for this other one. And I'm doing it this way because later, when we actually do this with JavaScript, it will be a little bit easier this way. So society is this yellow one. And again, the hash, and then the 6 numbers. Okay, nice. So let's just add some padding here just to, well, make it a bit more beautiful like this. It's not perfect. So let's actually give it the same value for the top and bottom and for the left and right. Well, actually, maybe that's not such a good idea because for some reason with this font face or this font family, it adds some space here to the bottom while it doesn't add any space to the top. So we kind of need to account for that. So we want to add some space to the top maybe, but not to the bottom. So basically what we want is padding top of 3 pixels So now it looks like there's the same space on the top and the bottom, and then left and right side of 10 pixels. So padding left and padding right. Okay, that's looking good. All right, and with this, we kind of finished the, let's say, introductory part of CSS and are now ready to move on to create some very small and simple layouts. So in the next lecture, we will take a first look at Flexbox and creating some very simple layouts with it. So that's going to be really exciting. So let's quickly move on to the next video.